All right, quick word, guys. So the scriptures say that we were predestined to be conformed into the image of the Son of God. So that means that before we ever lived a day, before we were even born, God had chosen our destiny. And that destiny, simply put, is to grow more and more and more into the image and likeness of Jesus Christ, to look more and more like him. That means to become more holy, to do more righteous deeds, to literally live exactly like Jesus lived when he was on earth. And this really is our eternal life. You see, it is eternal life that you would know God and that you would know Jesus. And, there's an old famous quote. I don't know where it originated, but it's very common knowledge to most of us. And it goes like this: you don't really know somebody until you walk a mile in their shoes, right? Jesus Christ is allowing us to walk in his shoes while we live here on earth. And it's really that simple, guys. And we have to walk in his shoes in order to come to know him fully. And this is why Paul says, this is why Paul the apostle wrote, that that he wanted to come to know Christ in a deeper way through Christ's actual sufferings. And most of us are not going to literally be crucified on a cross. I get that. Although many Christians have. Many Christians were. Imagine that, But there are many, many trials and experiences that Jesus went through physically here on earth. And even Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and with man. So even Jesus had to grow while he was on earth. And it was the trials, it was the sufferings that helped him grow into full maturity as a son of God. We likewise are growing still, and we are not fully mature. We are transformed as we gaze upon Jesus Christ. The more that we gaze upon him, the more we are transformed into his image. And if we want to be transformed and conformed into the image of the Son of God more and more, then it's very simple. We need to go through more experiences with him. Many of the same trials that he went through on earth. And this is hard, but we are called to do this for the joy set before us, right? That's how Jesus endured the cross. And we likewise need to pick up our cross daily, right, and follow him. But we got to know what we're doing it for, guys. Jesus knew what he was doing it for. Do you think that he just went to the cross in blind faith and said, well, my father's telling me to do this, so I got to do it, No, he wouldn't have been able to do it if it was that meaningless to him. Jesus knew exactly what he was doing it for. And if the prize at the end of the sufferings was not worth it, he would not have done it. It's that simple. Only a foolish person would sit down to build a temple without counting the cost first and figuring out, is it even worth doing this? Am I even going to be able to follow through with it? Or am I going to build the foundation and then give up and look like a fool in front of everybody? No. That is not the life that God has called us to. Jesus Christ knew that he was building the temple of God. We should know that we are helping build the temple of God, that we are the temple of God, that each new person that comes into Christ, into the church, and is saved through experiencing him through this temple, through our lives, is another stone in that temple. And one day that temple is going to be complete and it's all going to be finished. And God knows. God knows which ones are his. God knows the time and the seasons. It's not for us to know all these things, but the point is that the people that are saved by being a part of our lives, by being a part of Jesus, by experiencing Jesus through us, through our sufferings, through our trials, through the image of Jesus Christ that they get to witness in us by our willingness to suffer and to know Christ more through our sufferings, and to be able to show them Christ more through our sufferings, through the knowledge of God that we gain through our sufferings, through all of our experiences, is going to save people. If they can look at our lives and see the gospel through what they witness, to see the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Christ through what they witness, then they will be looking at Jesus. And they will be transformed into his image and glory as well. This is what we're doing it for. Jesus knew that through his sufferings, many of his children would return into the Father's house, and he would get to be with them. It was that simple. Jesus was buying his bride back. You know, a man whose wife runs off, right? And and is separated from him. He wants her back. He loves her so much, he just wants her home, right? Because when she is in his arms, there is joy. That's what Jesus did this for. That's why Jesus was willing to suffer and go through the things that he went through, so that he could hold us in his arms again. He did it for the joy that was going to come at the end, the joy of being with us again. And we got to know that if we are going through various trials in this life right now, if need be, it's for that same reason. It's so that we can put God's children back into his arms. And it will take us being conformed into Jesus' image for them to come to know God and to come to know the gospel, so that they can be put back into God's arms. And not only this, but we also need to have the same mindset as Jesus. We need to count it joy to suffer, so that we can bring unbelievers into the kingdom as new believers, just so that we can hold them in our arms again. The question is, do we love the people that are in the world enough to say, I count it joy to be put through suffering for you, just so that you could see Christ in me, just so that you could see the gospel in me, and I can be your brother or your sister? Because essentially what we're saying is, I just want to be I want you to be in my life as my family so much that I'm going to go through the sufferings of Christ in this world so that you can know him through me. Is that where we are? Is that how we feel about our lives and the things that we're going through? It should be. And that's a part of our growth. That's a part of the way that we need to grow in the likeness of Jesus Christ. That desire needs to be in our heart. And that's a heavy task, guys. And I know none of us have fully reached perfection. None of us have fully gotten there. But that's where God is growing us and trying to get us to mature.